you're one of the people receiving the minimum wage, you'll feel much more, willing to spend. You'll get that confidence if you believe those raises are coming over the next 6-7 years. So it's positive in that context. But again, ultimately, it's a really small percentage of the workforce.
What with all the humming about attacking wives and bird cage rag newspapers spitting out things with no solid evidence, this weekend a real issue snuck under the radar and threatens to change our economy as we know it. Though to be honest, that might not be a bad idea. From California comes the deal to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour over the next few years. Rejoicing from those who work for peanuts, scorn from those who claim the end results will be massive unemployment. All right, deal de dinero. Let's get to work with those who understand such matters. Welcome back to the syndicated columnist, University of Maryland professor of business, Peter Morici, joined by the CEO and managing partner at Harrington Capital Management, having worked at some of the world's largest investment banking firms, Kyle Harrington. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. And Peter, I'm going to begin with you. What's so wrong about making money, boosting California's minimum wage by 2022? And some people say you give people more money, they'll spend more money, and it will help the economy.
Well, if you give people more money, you have to remember you're taking it away from someone else. The price of a hamburger goes up, and the person that bought the hamburger won't be able to spend as much money, say, at the Gap buying clothes. So it isn't as though there's going to be this boost in spending. What we have here is very selective economics by politically motivated people who are basically looking to harvest Democratic votes. It's already been shown in San Francisco, where the minimum wage has gone up a great deal, that restaurants are closing. Now, there are some selected contexts in which you can get away with $15 an hour. For example, if you're selling hamburgers on Wall Street, where people make these huge bonuses and salaries, you probably can support a higher minimum wage there. But throughout the entire state of California, remember there's Northern California with lots of small towns and villages. In those places, if it hurts in San Francisco, it's going to be absolutely, excruciating in those places.
So, Kyle, let me get it from you then, because people are saying if you've got a low profit margin, this could put a business right out of business very quickly. Peter alluded to that as well, and many people believe he's right. So then what's an answer, though? Because let's be very frank here. We have people in America working 40, 50 hours a week, making low wages, having to rely on tips. So where do we go from here to at least try and balance this out?
Well, I agree with Peter, and I agree with you, Ed, that raising this across the state is not necessarily the answer. What I do think you need to address, quite frankly, as a small business owner myself, is you really need to take a look at our tax code, for one. I think you need to look at our regulatory burden that has been placed on small businesses with respect to fees and fines and a whole host of things. If we can start addressing some of those issues, that would cut out some of the expenses associated with putting some of these small businesses out of business. And I think that there's a fine line between tweaking the expenses associated with these small businesses, and one would say, oh, well, another 2% in taxes doesn't really make a big deal, or, oh, raising, the minimum wage $15 does it. Well, no, it is a big deal with the small businesses that are out there, and you're seeing, as Peter had highlighted, that the restaurants are going out of business across, San Francisco. So you're right. I think that we need to look at other things that might help keep small businesses in business.
Now you opened the door, you talked about taxes. This was interesting. Vox.com, the website, published a calculator that showed how each presidential candidate's tax plan would affect people. Now, we've got a couple of examples here. If you make $28,000 a year, you're single and no children, the bottom line here on this graph is Bernie Sanders' tax, which is massive. Sanders' plan drops you way out there. Here's another one. $50,000, married and 2 children. We look at the graph again. When you click on it, Bernie Sanders once again will tax you almost into infinity. Now, let's hit the one that we all knew about. That's $400,000 a year, married, 2 kids. And again, this is where Bernie Sanders and a lot of people want to make their money, actually $300,000 a year. Hit it and go. And you'll see right here again, the bottom line is Bernie Sanders, a tremendous amount of money. But Donald Trump is in there too, and others. All right, Peter, to you first. We've seen the numbers now. Fair to say that Bernie Sanders' tax plan, if you look at it, it's going to kill everybody, no matter how much money you make.
Well, we have to ask ourselves, what is Bernie going to do with all those taxes? I find a lot of these calculators to be kind of hard to take. But if we're going to have, for example, socialized medicine, we're already spending more than we need to spend on health care to provide the British health system to Americans. We just need to pay lower prices for what health care we get. And if that were the case, we wouldn't need, much in the way of taxes to finance it. Even before Obamacare, the United States was spending through its governments the equivalent of the cost of the British healthcare service. The rest was lost in torts, excessive administrative expenses, overpriced drugs, and in some cases, doctors that earn too much. It's one thing to pay a GP $200,000 a year. It's another thing to pay a radiologist with 2 years' experience $1 million a year for sitting in a room to look at x-rays all day. I think that we need more imaginative thinking if we're going to solve our problems. And I think that we need to stop running these calculators because these taxes are never going to happen, no matter who gets elected.
Let's do this. Kyle, I got 40 seconds. Bernie Sanders bad? Just put it that way after seeing this. You agree with Peter. Got to watch these calculators.
Well, you go over these calculators. I look at myself with 8-year-old triplets, believe it or not, and I'm really paying attention to a lot of this tax situation. So the answer is no, Bernie Sanders' plan, and I have no interest in it at all. I think that what he is proposing in terms of taxes does not make a lot of sense. And I think that, however, I think that we do need to address the issue of our current tax code, and other candidates have mapped out their plans as well, and it's interesting to discuss all of them.
It goes to show once again that we're talking about tax codes here. Vox.com has it. And oh yeah, by the way, Kyle, triplets, 8-year-olds, my God, my man, you have our sympathies and certainly our luck. Let's put it that way. Kyle Harrington, Peter Morici, gentlemen, thanks so much for talking to us. Boy, there's a man who's got to get his money out right now from diapers alone. Hitting quarterbacks to hitting defenseless women. Welcome to Mississippi State University, next in Telling It Like It Is.